The lady, whose name we will learn later, takes off her boots on the top of a mountain and notices the wounds on her feet. She pulls off her toenail. The pain causes her to scream and she falls back. Accidentally, she hits her boot and it rolls down the mountain. Frustrated, she throws off her other boot as well and screams with all her heart. We go back in time when a stranger drops her at a hotel. She goes in and books a room. She informs the front desk lady that she is hiking the PCT and asks what to fill in for the address, given her situation. Later, she calls a man to tell him that she is in Mojave and used his address to book the room. She also tells him to inform her brother Leaf about her whereabouts, and the guy wants to get back to cooking for his friend. She asks about the person, but he asks her in return, will that make any difference to her? He tells her that he has to go and wishes Cheryl a happy journey. Thanks to him, now we know that her name is Cheryl. The next morning, she packs everything she needs and her luggage ends up bigger than her. It is too heavy for her to carry and she tries hard and ends up rolling over strapped with the bag and finally manages to stand. She slowly starts walking and notices two cars at the gas station. She hitches a ride with the normal-looking guy, and as they start chatting, she tells him that she is hiking along the Pacific Crest Trail that goes from the Mexican border all the way to Canada, and she will be hiking for the next 3 months up to Ashland. As they finish the conversation, we see his son on the passenger seat quietly snacking and reading a book. As the man turns on the radio, Cheryl gets nostalgic hearing the song and thinks back to the time when her younger self and her mom were dancing to the same song in their kitchen. She is brought back as the son turns off the radio and she gets down after a while. She repeats her routine and rolls over to carry her backpack, and as she walks further, she leaves her first entry on the trail register and starts hiking. We come to know that this is the day she started on the trail. She questions her decision as she starts walking and looks back, mentioning she can quit anytime now. After walking 5 miles, she sets up her first tent after struggling through the manual. She realizes that she got the wrong fuel for her stove and starts eating whatever she has without cooking. Cheryl writes her experiences in her journal and starts reading a book. She thinks back to her time at school, and on the hallway, she comes across her mom, Bobby, who happens to study there as well. Later, Cheryl apologizes to Bobby for ignoring her at school. Bobby feels excited to learn all of this, and Cheryl says that she is proud of Bobby, even though it feels a little strange going to school with her mom. As they start chatting about assignments, her brother Leaf comes in with a friend. That night, Cheryl talks herself to sleep to not be afraid, and a few days go by as she manages to snack on whatever she can with water. On day 5, she crosses mile 30 and scolds herself for her stupid decision to go on this hike. On day 8, she runs out of food, and as she continues on the trail, she notices a vehicle further ahead. She finds a guy on a tractor. Cheryl introduces herself and explains her situation, but the guy tells her that he got work to do. She tells him that she can wait and asks him to take her someplace to get some food. He tells her to wait in his truck since he's still got some work to do. He comes back after quite some time and offers her that he could take her to his place for dinner and a hot shower. Cheryl tells him that her husband is hiking too but is further ahead on the trail. The guy then goes on to give her a candy and asks her not to tell his wife about it. Only then, Cheryl breathes a sigh of relief and the guy starts driving. At his home, Cheryl joins the couple for dinner and starts stuffing everything. Later, Cheryl takes a shower and thinks back to the time she got a tattoo. We see the guy she spoke on the phone before. His name is Paul, and they are getting matching tattoos since they are getting divorced. The tattoo artist asks why not stay together, but Cheryl reveals that she cheated on him a lot of times. They finish off the formalities, and Cheryl changes her last name to Strayed, and later they hug each other in tears. After a goodbye kiss, they go their separate ways. The next morning, she buys the right fuel for the stove and the man questions about the husband. Cheryl lets him know she said so cause she was scared of him. The guy understands and doesn't blame her. He tells her to not quit and drops her off wishing her luck. It is now day 9 and Cheryl cooks her food on the stove. She enjoys her dinner howling along with the animals in the distance. The next day, she comes across a rattlesnake and barely escapes it. We jump to day 12. She crosses mile 80 and sees a guy washing himself in the river. He notices her watching and calls her by name. He introduces himself as Greg and lets her know that he knew her name from the trail register. She goes down, and as they start chatting, she learns that Greg averages around 22 miles per day. He gives her some pointers and lets her know that he will be resting for a few days in Kennedy Meadows and they could plan something there together. Now we visit her past when she told her friend Amy that she might be pregnant and doesn't know who the father is. Amy asks her to take the pregnancy test for confirmation, and when Cheryl goes to buy the kit, she comes across a book book on the Pacific Crest Trail but doesn't buy it. After confirming that she is pregnant, Cheryl cries and tells Amy that she is not going to have the baby. Cheryl goes back to the store to buy that book and tells Amy that she will walk herself to become the woman her mother thought of her to be. We return to the present on day 14 as Cheryl finally reaches Kennedy Meadows. Greg welcomes her with cheer and introduces her to his friends. He treats her with juice and chips. She also meets Amazing Ed, who will be cooking for them. Cheryl checks her package from Amy for supplies and cash. She finds a letter among them and finds that Paul wrote to her. He mentions that if she is reading it, then she has crossed 100 miles and wishes her the best for the rest of the journey. Later, Ed cooks her food and mentions that he comes here often to hang out with the hikers. Seeing her feet, Ed advises her to get some bigger boots, and that can be arranged if she talks to the company at the next stop. He also offers to prune her insane luggage and picks out only the necessities for the hike. Ed advises her to burn the books after she reads them since it will make the load lighter. Cheryl separates out 2 books that she will never burn. Later, she talks to the company asking for new boots, and as she rests, she thinks back when Bobby mentioning the books she loved to read. Sometime later, Greg notifies her about the hikers who went ahead got stopped by the piled-up snow, and they boarded a bus to Reno and continued on the trail from there. He learns about her hiking without a plan and suggests her to target the Bridge of the Gods on the Columbia River between Oregon and Washington. Hooked on the name, Cheryl loves the idea to pick out the place as her destination. That night, Cheryl is reading a book and she thinks back when a doctor notified them that Bobby had tumor in her spine and he gave her a year to live. Later, Cheryl boards a bus to Reno, and from there, she calls Paul to inform her location. On day 25, she looks for a ride, but the guy who stops introduces himself as Jimmy Carter, who works for Hobo Times and drives all across the country interviewing hobos. Cheryl refuses his statements, but either way, James notes down her story and goes on to take her picture against her will. He hands her a hobo care package and drives off. After having the drink from the package, she rides with a family, and just like that, we reach day 30, and Cheryl doesn't seem to give up. Surprisingly, she finds the path covered in snow, but that isn't enough to stop her. She covers the snowy path, but is startled by a couple of guys skiing past her. She shouts at them asking for direction, and that night she dreams about Bobby talking with her horse and asking her to take care of her. In the morning, Cheryl finds a fox looking at her, but it leaves after Cheryl runs calling for it. We see Bobby again getting treated, and as Cheryl leaves, she lets the nurse know that it's only been a month, but the doctor gave her a year. As she goes home, she falls asleep waiting for Leaf. He comes back late, and even though she argues that they waited for him the whole day at the hospital, they end up talking about their memories with Bobby. Cheryl takes Leaf's hand and starts praying to the whole universe for a miracle. The next day, Leaf drives her to see Bobby at the hospital, but they come to learn that Bobby has donated her eyes. Cheryl freaks out, and we get back to the when she screamed on the top of the mountain as she threw away her boot. A bunch of memories flash through her mind and she tapes her feet to her sandals. She sees the fox again, only to notice it disappear the next second. With that, Cheryl continues the hike. She walks the path as she thinks back on the time she cheated on Paul, and after she crosses a river. Cheryl thinks about the time she saw Bobby singing and argued with her for being careless, even though their lives are miserable. On day 49, she reaches the next stop to get her new boots. She finds another letter from Paul mentioning that she covered 600 miles. Then, she comes across Stacy, who enters the shop for her package. Cheryl finds that Stacy too is hiking the same trail, and they decide to go camp together that night. Stacy reveals that Greg has quit and has decided to come back next year. They start talking about why they started their journey, and Cheryl thinks back to the day her father beat Bobby and chased them out. She leaves her next entry on the register on day 56 and remembers the day when Paul found her cheating. Soon, Cheryl runs out of water and she thinks it is about time. She finds the water tank on the trail, but it turns out to be empty. The next day, she licks off the dew on her tent and continues hiking. She notices a puddle on the way and filters the water with her kit. Then she notices 2 guys walking towards her asking for water. Cheryl helps them out, but she remains wary of them, so she lies that she leaves, and seeing them leave too, she changes her clothes and gets ready to set up camp. But she is shocked to notice one of the guys standing there. He gets all creepy with her, but the other guy calls out to him to return. As soon as he leaves, Cheryl picks up everything and runs. She enters Oregon on day 62 and continues on her way after greeting the Oregon cow. She heads into town and stops by watching a guy perform. She ends up lost in thoughts, staring at the people across the street, and a guy comes across to invite her to a music club that night. She cleans up and visits the club but leaves with the guy who invited her. She spends the night with him, and the next day she gets back on the trail. Cheryl keeps on walking and finds a beautiful view before her. She camps there for the day, and the next time we see her walking, it rains heavily as she reaches the stop to get her next package, but the guy in charge closes and hops on his car to leave. She requests him to help her, and he opens up when Cheryl promises to join him for a drink. As she gets her package, other hikers barge in and identify Cheryl because of all the entries she left in the registers. The guy lets them have their packages as well since Cheryl requests him to do so. That night Cheryl camps with the hikers and it starts raining again. Cheryl heads to sleep and she dreams about how Leaf and Herd decided to put Bobby's horse to rest. She wakes up to find a horse and goes to calm her down in the storm. The next morning, she calls Leaf to tell him she loves him. After that, the package guy brings Cheryl her breakfast. After he leaves, the hikers suggest her to have Queen of the PCT as her trail name, since they were motivated by her words in the register. Cheryl asks them not to tease her, and she gets back on track. She comes across a llama and holds it down. She meets Kyle and Grandma Vera, who come looking for the llama. Kyle says that the llama's name is Shooting Star, and he offers to sing her a song. Cheryl tries hard not to spill her tears, and she thanks him for singing for her. After they leave, Cheryl falls to her knees and cries her heart out, saying she misses Bobby. Days go by as Cheryl walks the path, and on day 94, she feels liberated, and we hear her voice revealing that it took her 4 years, 7 months, and 3 days to become the woman her mom wanted her to be. She gets out of the woods and finally reaches the Bridge of the Gods. With her journey at its end, she thanks for everything the trail taught her, and as she walks over the bridge, Cheryl thinks to herself how she never thought that she would be marrying a man 4 years later in a spot that could be visible from where she was standing. And 9 years later, they would have a son named Carver, and a year later, a daughter named Bobby. Let me know in the comments if you have gone on a hike to figure something out, and I shall see you with another story like this. Until then, this is your host from Movie Recap signing off.